Hello and welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be discussing a theory I have in Genshin Impact about this mud substance, as well as a explanation that miHoYo or Hoyoverse themselves gave for it in a event that followed up the most recent Archon quests for the game. And essentially, before the quests came out, all we knew is that it was black mud that could be found specifically in the chasm, and it got a bit more abundant and noticeable and stronger as you descend into the chasm itself. In the 2.7, I believe, update, we got a new set of Archon quests that revolved around being in the very bottom of the chasm. And essentially, what happened is down here, as you can see, there's a lot of corruption all around down here. But at the bottom of this, where this giant spear or stone or crystal is above, the Traveler, Paimon, Arataki Ito, Yelan, and Yanfei and Zhao all were dropped into a chaotic space, which essentially feeds off of the life force of other creatures. And we learned during this story quest that the Yaksha, the unnamed Yaksha, the one that did not perish years ago, was actually fighting with the Millelith in the chasm against Conria creatures. And it was Bosacius, the Electro Yaksha, who has 4 arms. And essentially what we learned is that the way they defeated the Conrian creatures is they lured them into the chaotic space, where a Millelith soldier and Bosacius sealed up the entrance so they couldn't leave. They were trapped down there forever. And the Conrian creatures, once in there, just kind of went immobile, as their energy and life was being siphoned out by the space. The squad of Millelith soldiers slowly died out, leaving one left with Bosacius. And they both slowly died, and Bosacius remembered who he was in his last moments. And based off of that, I came up with the theory that the black mud is essentially a secretion of the Conrian energy of the beasts and creatures from Conria, as well as the remains of Bosacius's karmic debt. Seeing as we learned from Zhao that the karmic debt of Yakshas is harmful to non-vision holders. And during the world quest to unlock the chasm, to be able to explore it, one of the adventurer that is down here with us, which doesn't look like she's down here, which makes sense considering that she supposedly, or that she kind of left the team. But essentially she was being very negatively affected by the mud and was getting incredibly sick because of it. Which, to me, this implies like some sort of negative effects from it. not just anything else. And in the event, in the same update as the quest, the Archon quests, we learn with a researcher, it was the Muddy Bizarre Adventure quest, or event, where that the mud is caused by ley line disruptions, or the ley lines, which in general it makes some sense, considering that the ley lines run beneath all of Tibet. However, then you have to wonder, why has none of this mud shown up anywhere else and just in the chasm? Especially since in the quest we learn that the deeper you go, the more prominent the mud is. As well as the source of the leak was actually from the mud, secreting out deeper into the chasm. So the question of why wasn't there any of this mud anywhere else in Tibet, due to the ley lines, which we know appear with different effects throughout Tibet because of these ley line outcrops, which you can do and complete to earn character XP materials and Mora. So why only in the chasm does the ley lines produce the corrupted mud? Well, I think it's actually a combination of the ley lines and the chaotic space. As I mentioned earlier, if it was solely because of the ley lines, which, as you can see, this is a ley line in the overworld, then you would expect, to an extent, the black mud to appear in the ley lines up here as well. But it doesn't. Which, to me, is kind of odd. Because why wouldn't it appear everywhere that the ley lines go, and just in the chasm? Honestly, I feel like it's probably because the chasm, chaotic space at the bottom of the chasm, is the source of the mud, whereas the ley line just essentially distributes it.
Let's dance!
Which would then mean that it could appear elsewhere in Tibet, but it's not likely, seeing as it mainly, like its main source is in the chasm. Which I could be wrong about that. However, because of the negative effects of karmic debt on normal non-vision wielders, as well as the fact that it's more abundant and the cause of the issue in the Muddy Bizarre Adventure event was deeper in the chasm than it was initially thought during the event, seems to tell me that it's the origin and the cause of this mud. And just let me know in the comments if you agree. And that'll be it for this theory discussion, if you were. Let me know if you have anything else you'd like to see in the future that I discuss and analyze.
A blade embraces its duty,
And
as
that's
a jeweler
it
cherishes
for
their
today.
gems.
Have a nice week and good night.